The morning sun of October 19, 1986, painted the quiet upscale streets of Ikeja, Lagos, with a deceptive, shimmering calm. It was the kind of Sunday that felt eternal, filled with the soft clink of cutlery against porcelain and the distant melodic hum of church bells from nearby parishes. But inside the house at 25 Talabi Street, the atmosphere was different. It was electric, charged with the kinetic energy of a man who lived his life on the razor's edge. Dele Giwa was in his sanctuary, a study that smelled of old newsprint, expensive tobacco, and the invisible weight of dangerous secrets. At 39, Giwa was more than a journalist. He was a rock star of the Fourth Estate, a flamboyant, Western-educated firebrand who had returned from the New York Times to show Nigeria what new journalism looked like. He didn't just report the news, he hunted it, wearing his investigative prowess like a suit of armor. As he sat with Kayode Soyinka, his London bureau chief, the two men were sharing a breakfast of pap and moin moin. They were discussing the soul of a nation and the future of their brainchild, Newswatch magazine. They were the pioneers of a new, gritty style that stripped the masks off military dictators, and they knew the stakes were rising. But outside the walls of this study, a masterpiece of state-sponsored terror was reaching its crescendo. The assassination did not begin with a bomb. It began with a psychological siege that had been tightening like a noose for days. To understand the murder, one must understand the environment. 1980s Nigeria was a labyrinth of intelligence officers, midnight arrests, and a military government that was increasingly sensitive to the parallax view Giwa provided in his columns. The atmosphere in Lagos was thick with a heavy, military-grade paranoia. On Thursday, October 16th, the shadow first fell. Giwa had been summoned by the Directorate of Military Intelligence, DMI. The room was likely cold, the air thin, with unspoken threats. There, Colonel Halilu Akilu interrogated him, leveling accusations that bordered on the absurd, yet carried the weight of a death sentence. He was accused of gun running and plotting a socialist revolution. For a man whose only arms were his fountain pen and his intellect, the charge was a clear signal. The state was moving from annoyance to active hostility. The next day, Friday, the pressure intensified. He was called to the State Security Service, SSS, headquarters on Awolowo Road. Lieutenant Colonel A.K. Togun looked Giwa in the eye and accused him of radicalizing the public. Giwa left that meeting chilled to the bone. He knew the playbook of military regimes. He knew that when they could not refute the message, they destroyed the messenger. He turned to his partner, Ray Ekpu, and uttered a prophetic warning. If they can't catch me on what I write, they want to catch me on what I don't do. Saturday brought the most haunting detail of all. A move so calculated, it felt like a predator marking its territory before the strike. Colonel Akilu called Giwa's home twice. He spoke to Giwa's wife, Funmi, with a terrifyingly polite tone, asking for the exact directions to the house. He claimed he wanted to visit as a friend to settle their differences. In a detail that would later haunt investigators, he even mentioned that a parcel might be arriving from the president's office soon. It was the ultimate Trojan horse. The use of domestic familiarity to mask a lethal intent. This was gaslighting on a state level. They were convincing the victim that his enemies were becoming his protectors. By the time Sunday morning arrived, the trap was set with surgical precision. At approximately 11:40 a.m., a white Peugeot 504, the ubiquitous car of the Nigerian middle class and undercover agents alike, pulled up outside the residence. A courier handed a light brown padded envelope to the security guard at the gate. The guard, Musa Zibo, noted the official markings. He handed it to Giwa's young son, Billy, who carried it into the study. The envelope was heavy, bearing the Nigerian coat of arms and a confidential stamp. It was addressed to Dele Giwa, purportedly from the Office of the Commander-in-Chief. "This must be from the President," Giwa remarked, with a faint, perhaps relieved smile to Soyinka. He believed the olive branch Akilu had offered was real. He believed that even in a military dictatorship, there was a threshold of civility. He placed the parcel on his lap, a move that would seal his fate in a flash of heat and metal. As his fingers tore at the seal, the world inside the study ceased to exist. The blast was a thunderclap that shattered the Sunday silence of Ikeja, a sound so violent it was heard streets away. This was not a primitive device made in a basement. It was a sophisticated piece of engineering, likely using C4 plastic explosives and a micro-switch detonator triggered by the release of tension on the flap. The force of the detonation was catastrophic. It blew the steel burglary bars off the bathroom windows, warping the metal as if it was soft wax. The heavy mahogany desk was reduced to jagged splinters. Kayode Soyinka was thrown across the room by the sheer pressure wave, his eardrums ruptured, sliding into a temporary, ringing unconsciousness. But Giwa took the full brunt. Because the parcel was on his lap, the blast direction was downward and outward. His lower body was practically severed, his legs a charred, unrecognizable ruin. As the smoke cleared, the scene was one of pure, unadulterated horror. Fumi Giwa rushed into the room, her screams piercing the ringing silence. She found her husband amidst the debris of his life. Books, papers, and breakfast remnants, all coated in a thick layer of soot and blood. They found a man who had been the voice of a generation reduced to a whisper. They wrapped him in a sheet, the white fabric instantly turning crimson as the blood soaked through. In the frantic, agonizing car ride to First Foundation Medical Center, Giwa remained conscious, a testament to his sheer will. He looked at his mangled body, the pain likely eclipsed by the sudden, horrific clarity of his situation. He looked at his companions and uttered 4 words that have echoed through the halls of Nigerian history. "They have got me." He was pronounced dead at 12:27 p.m. The man who lived by the word had been silenced by a force that had no vocabulary other than violence. To understand the why, one must look at the shadows Dele Giwa was illuminating. For months, he had been digging into the Gloria Okon mystery. Okon was a drug mule arrested in 1985 who supposedly died in custody. Hilaise's investigative files suggested something far darker. He was reportedly on the verge of proving that Okon had not died at all, but had been spirited away to London. She was allegedly a front for a massive drug smuggling ring involving the highest echelons of the military government, including the First Lady Miriam Babangida. In the 1980s, drug trafficking was a capital offense in Nigeria, punishable by death. If Giwa could prove that the very people enforcing this law were the ones profiting from the trade, the government would have collapsed overnight. It is whispered that the parcel Giwa was expecting was actually a set of photographs proving Okon was alive, evidence that would have triggered a political earthquake. Instead of the truth, they sent him a bomb. The aftermath was a masterclass in state-sponsored obstruction. The official police investigation was a farce from the start. Deputy Inspector General of Police Chris Omeben later lamented in interviews that he was blocked from questioning the prime suspects. Every time the trail led to the DMI or the SSS, a red line was drawn by the presidency. Security chiefs Akilu and Togun refused to be interrogated, citing national security as a shield. Police files went missing. The crime scene was never properly processed by forensic experts. The state seemed more interested in investigating the survivors, questioning Soyinka and Giwa's colleagues, than finding the person who mailed the package. It was a classic blame the victim strategy, designed to muddy the waters and exhaust the public's patience. When Giwa's lawyer, the legendary Gani Fawehimi, tried to launch a private prosecution, he was met with a wall of legal technicalities and state harassment. Gani became a man possessed, fighting a decades-long war against a ghost. He filed dozens of lawsuits, was thrown into prison repeatedly, and was branded a security risk. Yet, he never faltered. He knew that if Dele Giwa could be murdered in broad daylight with a state-issued bomb, then no one in Nigeria was safe. The case became a dark nursery rhyme, whispered in the markets and on the buses. Who killed Dele Giwa? If I say Baba and you add Ginda, now you sabi. The insinuation pointed directly to the head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, whose nickname was IBB or Maradona for his ability to dribble through political crises. The cultural impact of the murder was tectonic. It marked the end of the honeymoon period for the Babangida administration and the beginning of a dark era of state violence against the press. Nigerian journalists realized that the rules of engagement had changed. You didn't just risk prison anymore. You risked total annihilation. Newswatch continued to publish, but it was never the same. The soul of the magazine had been ripped out in that explosion. The murder sent a chilling message to every newsroom in West Africa. There are some truths that the state will not allow to be told. Decades later, the ghosts refused to stay buried. During the 2001 Oputa panel, Nigeria's version of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the Giwa case was revisited. The nation watched, transfixed, as former security officials danced around the truth. Abubakar Tsav, the police commissioner who originally handled the case, testified that the investigation was deliberately sabotaged by the powers that be. He called it a clear case of state-sponsored assassination. He revealed that his recommendations to prosecute the security chiefs were ignored by the government. Yet, despite the testimony, no one was held accountable. The suspects simply didn't show up to the panel, shielded by legal maneuvers and the heavy passage of time. As the years turned into decades, the Talabi street house remained a monument to an era of silenced voices. The memory of Dele Giwa became a rallying cry for activists and journalists alike. Every October 19th, the Nigerian media space is filled with his image. The glasses, the confident smile, the pen. In February 2024, the story took one final unexpected turn. A federal high court in Abuja ordered the Attorney General to reopen the investigation into the murder of Dele Giwa and other journalists. It was a stunning legal victory, nearly 40 years in the making. It proved that in the world of true crime, some cases are too heavy to stay at the bottom of the ocean. They always float back to the surface, demanding to be seen. Dele Giwa's death was intended to be a period at the end of a sentence, a final violent stop to a career that dared too much. Instead, it became an ellipsis, a lingering question that a nation still hasn't found the courage to answer fully. His legacy is not just the magazine he built, but the standard he set, that the truth is worth dying for, even if the killers have the power to send it in a padded envelope. The murder of Dele Giwa remains the most famous unsolved assassination in Nigerian history. No one has ever been charged. The parcel bomb remains the first and only one of its kind ever used in a political killing in the country. What do you think? Was this a desperate act by a cornered regime? Or were there international forces at play that we still don't understand? Share your theories in the comments below. If you believe that the truth should never stay buried, then subscribe to Echoes of the Unsolved 001 and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to know when our next story in South Africa drops. Because if you think the reach of a shadow government is terrifying, wait until you see what happens when the monsters are hiding in plain sight, right in your own neighborhood. Behind the manicured lawns and the Sunday school smiles, a different kind of evil was brewing in the heart of South Africa. A grainy CCTV shot of a quiet South African street in Krugersdorp. A woman, Cecilia Steyn, smiles at the camera. She looks like a normal middle-aged mother, but the detectives who followed her trail of bodies would call her something else. In our next episode, we cross the continent to South Africa. We're going inside the mind of Cecilia Steyn, the high priestess of the Electus per Deus cult. It's a story of a faked apocalypse, a trail of 11 bodies, and a group of ordinary people turned into cold-blooded killers. This is the story of Devil's Dorp.